Hey, what are you doing? I'm Nick Digilio. Thanks for checking out my YouTube channel. If you're watching me on Patreon, thanks for checking out my Patreon channel. I do a bunch of stuff. I do a bunch of videos. I do movie reviews. I contribute to the entertainment world. I have 2 podcasts. And all the stuff I do for free. So if you're watching me on Patreon or if you're watching me anywhere, you should give to my Patreon channel. It will help keep things going since I don't get any compensation for any of the stuff that I do. Any little bit donations can help. It's a cool donation. It'll keep my podcasts and my videos and my movie reviews and things like that going. It helps out a lot. And, keeping entertainment, keeping videos, and keeping reviews going is really important. So please contribute what you can, donate what you can, be cool, help out. Patreon.com/NickDShow. Patreon.com/NickDShow. Go there, pick a tier, become a patron, $3, $5, $25 a month. Whatever you want to donate is awesome. It's a monthly thing. It helps keep all of this stuff going, all of the things that I do for free going. So please donate when you can. I would love it if you did. It would be really awesome. So thank you. Please donate. Patreon.com/NickDShow. Donate now. Hey, I host 2 podcasts on the Radio Misfits Podcast Network. One of them is called That Show Hasn't Been Funny in Years. It's all about Saturday Night Live. It's the best SNL podcast out there, I'm telling you right now. Sometimes I have guests, sometimes I don't. People who have been part of the show, writers, behind-the-scenes people. We will also talk about anything that has to do with Saturday Night Live. It's called That Show Hasn't Been Funny in Years. It is a great podcast about Saturday Night Live. If you're a fan of SNL, you must subscribe. If you're not, you should still listen to it because it's informative and entertaining and fun. And I love SNL, and that's what the podcast is about. My other podcast, which has been running for well over a year now with my co-host Esmeralda Leon, it's called The Nick D Podcast, and that's also at RadioMisfits.com. The Nick D Podcast is a full entertainment-related pop culture podcast. In it, Esmeralda and I, who are my hosts, she's always in the second half of the podcast where we talk about our lives and what's happening, our observations, things in the world of entertainment and pop culture in real life. And we tell very funny and very humorous stories. And then the rest of the other half of the podcast are recurring regular guests that I have, where we cover the world of entertainment completely, the world of pop culture completely, where it's funny and it's informative and it's hilarious, and we review movies and TV and books and stage and music and pro wrestling, anything in the pop culture related entertainment fun world. I cover it on the Nick D Podcast. It's a great podcast, and it's very popular, and you should check it out and subscribe and listen. It's free. Download it at RadioMisfits.com or wherever you get your podcasts, available on every platform. Please like, rank, share, review, all that stuff. The Nick D Podcast, That Show Hasn't Been Funny in Years, and SNL Podcast, both of them hosted by me and available now. And in addition to that, I host live versions of the Nick D Podcast. And we've been doing this now for 3 months. It is once a month at Zanies Comedy Club in Rosemont. Zanies, one of the most legendary comedy clubs in the world. Well, a group of comedy clubs, a bunch of them. One of the great names in the history of comedy clubs, Zanies. And we are lucky enough to have Zanies in Rosemont be our home base for monthly live podcast recordings with a great audience. It's fantastic. So we're doing another one, our 4th one. We've done 3 so far. And it's at Zanies in Rosemont. You can get all the information at rosemont.zanies.com. And the live versions of the podcast it's very much similar to what we do on the regular podcast, where we talk about pop culture and life and all kinds of cool stuff. My co-host for the second half of each episode of my podcast is Esmeralda Leon. She's been with me for years. She used to do traffic on my old WGN show, and now she's my partner for the second half of each podcast episode, where we talk about our real life, what's happening, make observations, talk about pop culture, talk about things that are happening in the world, and we have a great take and hilarious stories about it. So we take that and bring that to the stage. Esmeralda and I are on stage. We interact with the audience. If you're the audience, you'll be a part of the show. We'll hear stories from you. We will interact with you. We give away great prizes. We have great, hilarious trivia questions that we give away, that we do in order to give away these great prizes, like T-shirts and coffee mugs and dinners and Apt Electronics gift cards and things like that. It's all recorded for a live podcast episode, so you'll be a part of a live recording in a legendary comedy club. And it's hilarious and fun and huge, huge laughs. My father, who's 81, who's been telling jokes his whole life, who tells jokes on my podcast every Tuesday, gets up on stage and closes the show with hilarious jokes that only an 81-year-old man could get away with telling. So my dad's on stage telling jokes. It's me and Esmeralda talking about our lives in pop culture and entertainment, and we have a special guest every month. Our first time we did it, we had Tony Fitzpatrick, the great artist, Renaissance man, incredible writer, actor, everything. He was our first guest. Dwayne Kennedy, one of the greatest stand-ups of all time, Emmy-winning writer, actor, appeared on Seinfeld. He was our second guest. Our third guest was the great John DeCoss, another veteran of stand-up, contributor and musical director on the Steve Cochran Morning Show on WLS AM 890, Monday through Friday, 5:30 a.m. to 9 a.m., of which I am a regular. You can listen to me on Fridays on the Steve Cochran Show on WLS AM. Anyway, John DeCoss was our third guest, and we are doing another one, and these are once a month on Tuesdays at Zanies in Rosemont. And the next one is a really special one, and I want to make sure that you come out. It's really, really big. It's really, really awesome. In addition to already being very, very funny, you're going to laugh your ass off when you come to these things. You might win a prize. You're definitely going to eat something because we always bring treats and do taste tests for the entire audience. So you'll definitely have a great time. Big laughs. My dad, me, Esmeralda, entertainment, all kinds of fun stuff. It is an absolutely hilarious night of fun and comedy at Zanies. That's guaranteed. And live recording. But I have a special guest every month, and I wanted to mention this special guest. My next live podcast will be on Tuesday, March 28th. Showtime at 7:30, doors open at 6:30. Tuesday, March 28th at Zanies in Rosemont. And my special guest that night is this guy. Yeah. This is big. Rich Koz, a.k.a. Svengoolie, is going to be our special guest live on stage at Zanies in Rosemont. I don't know if you know how big a deal this is. Rich Koz is a legend. Svengoolie is a god, as far as I'm concerned. Every Saturday night on MeTV, nationally, you can watch Svengoolie, 7 p.m. Central, and it's now 2.5 hours long. Used to be 2 hours. They've added a half an hour to it. And he shows classic movies, sometimes great ones, sometimes terrible ones, always entertaining. It's Rich Koz. He's Svengoolie. He is an absolute legend and one of the Chicago broadcasting gods and one of the greatest people in the world, one of the funniest, most entertaining, most brilliant minds, and the perennial, the greatest, horror movie host of all time, Svengoolie. Again, Saturday nights, MeTV, 7:30 or 7 p.m. Central Time every Saturday night. It's appointment TV for me. If I can't watch it live, if I'm doing something else, it's on the DVR and I watch it immediately when I can. It's the best thing ever, and Rich Koz is one of the coolest people of all time. And yes, he has agreed to be our special guest, my special guest, at the next live Nick D podcast event at Zanies in Rosemont on Tuesday, March 28th. Rich Koz will be there live. We will have him on stage. We will interview him. It'll be interactive. You can probably you can ask some questions. We'll do a quick Q&A with the audience. If you have any questions that you want for Svengoolie, he will be there. This guy will be there. He'll be sitting next to me and Esmeralda on stage. He will be in the same room with you when you get your tickets. We have him on stage. We'll have him on stage for over an hour. We will interview him about his career, his life, his favorite moments on TV, his favorite movies, his least favorite. The guy is loaded with incredible stories. He's also one of the funniest and nicest and most creative and most entertaining and hilarious people that you could possibly imagine having in the same room with you. And he will be in the same room with you when you get your tickets. So this is a special one. All of the Nick D Podcast live events that we've done at Zanies in Rosemont have been great. And we've been getting a lot of repeat customers and a lot of people who are just having a great time. It's become a really cool monthly meeting place to have laughs and have a good time and give away some prizes and just, forget about the world for a couple of hours, usually 2 hours long, record it, have a great time. Now, it's always been funny. It's always been entertaining. All three of the events that we've had have been fantastic, and every single person who has shown up said, yes, this is awesome, I'm coming next month. But this one is really special because this guy is going to be there live on stage, and we'll get to talk to him for like over an hour or so live. This is a very special thing. This doesn't happen very often. You don't get to sit in the same room with Rich Koz / Svengoolie, and I don't get to talk to the guy on stage in a room for over an hour or so. Well over an hour. And you need to be there. Yes, Rich Koz, Svengoolie, live at Zanies on stage with us. Now, you should come to every Nick D podcast live event at Zanies in Rosemont. But you should especially come to this one because it's going to be big, it's going to be hilarious, and he's going to be there. Again, tickets are on sale right now. Tickets are available now. But I got a feeling that these are going to go fast because Svengoolie's going to be there live on stage at Zanies. And at the end of the show, my dad's going to come up and tell some jokes, and I believe he and Sven are going to do kind of a joke-off. You're going to want to see that. 81-year-old father, my 81-year-old father on stage with Rich Koz, trading bad jokes. Rich Koz, of course, Svengoolie, known for his, his love of bad jokes. So anyway, all of this is going to be happening. We're giving stuff away, all that cool stuff. All the regular hilarious and entertaining things that we do at the Nick D Podcast Live, we will do that night, but with this guy on stage with us. Yes, Svengoolie Live. Get your tickets now. You can call 847-813-0484. That's 847-813-0484 and go, I want my tickets for the Nick D Podcast Live. Tuesday night, March 28th. Okay? Tuesday night, March 28th, 7:30 showtime, 6:30 doors. You can go to the website and get your tickets now. The Nick D Podcast Live, Tuesday, March 28th, rosemont.zanies.com. rosemont.zanies.com. All right, check it out. Tuesday, March 28th, Nick D Podcast Live, special guest, the one and only Rich Koz, Svengoolie himself. It's going to be unbelievable, it's going to be hilarious, and it's going to be great. And I just want to say thank you to Rich. Rich Koz is one of the greatest people in the world, one of the nicest people that you'll ever meet. And sometimes, you'll meet a lot of jerks in the broadcast industry. You will. And you'll meet a lot of people that don't know what they're doing and a lot of people that are clueless. The people that run WGN right now, in fact, are those kind of people. They're morons, they're jerks, they're a-holes, and they wouldn't know good radio if it came up and slapped them across the face. Especially the one guy who's in charge of WGN. One of the biggest idiots I've ever had the displeasure of working for. So there are a lot of morons that you will meet and a lot of mean people, on-camera people who are standoffish or mean. Rich Koz is not only the consummate professional, not only consistently brilliant, has not only provided years and years and years and multiple millions of hours of entertainment to us, the viewers, the consumers, the listeners. Not only has he been consistently funny and brilliant and hosted one of the greatest shows in the history of television, but he's also one of the nicest guys you will ever meet, and one of the most caring, and one of the most giving, and one of the most generous. And he's being very generous by giving me his time. Like, I asked him, I was like, hey, would you be a guest on my live podcast at Zanies? He's like, immediately, without hesitation, he said yes. He was the first guest on my podcast, on the very first episode I did of the Nick D Podcast, when I was very nervous about doing a podcast. I had been on WGN for 35 years. I didn't really know what the podcast thing was about, and I went through some really dark times after I got fired from WGN by that aforementioned idiot earlier that I mentioned. And I really wasn't sure, and I kind of said, hey, look, I want to be kind of safe. Would you be the first guest on my podcast? Without hesitation, Rich is like, I will do whatever you want me to do. I will be there for you. We've known each other for a long time. Rich and I go back many, many, many years. I met him through WGN, and I met him through the world of broadcasting. I've been on of Svengoolie's show. I've been the hand at the door telling the joke. I've thrown chickens at him. I've been a special guest star. I've done bits with him. I was on his TV show Stoogepalooza that he used to do when he would do 3 hours a night when he would host Three Stooges shorts. I was on one night with him as a guest on Shemp-tember because I love Shemp. He's my favorite Stooge. So Rich was like, yeah, come on down. You can be on Stoogepalooza with me, and we'll show nothing but Shemp shorts, and we can talk about him in between. And he's been on my show. He was on my show on WGN. He was the first guest on my podcast. I just know him from being Svengoolie and being Rich. And there isn't a classier, a nicer, more generous guy in the broadcast world than Rich Koz. Nobody. And on top of that, you know how funny he is, how hilarious and how creative, and how unbelievably, consistently, brilliantly good and funny he is. So, Rich Koz, I just want to thank Rich Koz. I've had the unbelievable honor and pleasure of knowing him for multiple, probably 35, almost 40 years I've known Rich. 35 years at least. And worked with him in a professional basis and on a personal level. He is everything. He's the real deal. Rich Koz is the real deal. There isn't better people on the planet than Rich Koz. And yes, he said, immediately, I will be the first guest on your podcast. And then I said, hey, would you mind coming out to Zanies at Rosemont and hanging out with us for a couple of hours? And he said, absolutely yes. Let me make sure my schedule is clear. He got back to me a day later. He's like, yep, my schedule is clear. I'll be there. So Rich Koz is going to be there. So get your tickets now. The Nick D Podcast Live, Tuesday, March 28th. Zanies in Rosemont. Really easy to get to. Big parking lot. Easy to get to. Parking is free. Get it validated. All that stuff. It could not be more convenient. Could not be better located. And it could not be a better, great, more classic comedy club. So, Tuesday, March 28th. Zanies in Rosemont. Rich Koz, Svengoolie on stage with you in the audience. Part of a live podcast recording. And again, giveaways, prizes, my dad telling jokes, me, Esmeralda, great pop culture stories, hilarious stuff. It's going to be a night of big laughs, big entertainment, and Svengoolie. So please get your tickets now. Please get your tickets now. Rosemont.zanies.com or 847-813-0484. Tuesday, March 28th, 7:30 start. The Nick D Podcast Live, another great event. We're doing them every month. And this one with the one and only Rich Koz, Svengoolie. Get your tickets now.